VOD as they need be. But anyway, so just to do an official introduction, welcome to The Hype. This is episode 17. I've been running this talk show for, I think, a year now, actually, ever since my first episode with Sean Garris long ago. And it's basically just a show that revolves around trying to get a little bit more insight into the CSGO scene, whether that be through player interviews like today, or whether it be I did a couple of shows with Moses where we just kind of analyze some things. So it's kind of a mixture of a show as far as what I try to do. But today is going to be kind of a combination of both, right? We're going to definitely interview ShahZaM, but we're also going to be analyzing the NA roster shuffle that has taken place here recently, as well as discuss some changes to the game that have taken place, as well as some tournaments that are coming up. To close, or actually to begin the year of 2015. There's actually nothing left for 2014, but 2015 is on the rise, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Other than that, ShahZaM, do you want to just do like a quick, brief introduction before we start this thing?
Sure, what's up? ShahZaM Khan. I play for Cloud9 CSGO, and I'm an opper. If you don't know, I guess. And yeah, I just recently joined Cloud9. That's
right on. So before we get into the meat of the show, which is the NA roster shuffle, I did want to give you guys a chance to maybe get to know ShahZaM a little bit if you have not already known about him or who he is. So basically, let's just go just really briefly before Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Can you tell people a little bit about how you got into the Counter-Strike franchise and kind of what you were doing up until CSGO? Just kind of like a brief cap of maybe your Counter-Strike Source career.
Yeah, sure. So I started out Source. Actually, I'm a Sourcey. When my brother bought Half-Life 2, it came with this game called Source, and I started playing it casually. I didn't really get into competitive until the last season of Cal, or the second to last season when CGS died, and then Cal died the season after. So I never actually played a match in Cal, but I started scrimming. I took a long break, and then around season 8 or season 9 of ESEA, I started pugging a ton, and played a season of Open, and then got scouted to an invite team just from ESA pugging a ton. And from there, it just took off, and I started playing invite and source for quite a while until CSGO came out.
So can you tell us a little bit about, like, where you were ranked at or how far you got in Counter-Strike Source before it came to an end?
Yeah, season 9 was my first season in ESEA, was the first season of ESEA invite and source. And it was a team called Just Cause Project, and we were a bunch of, like, 16-year-olds, our first time playing invite. Like, everyone thought we were onliners and cheaters, but then season 10 we made our first ESA LAN, which was also the first LAN for all of us. And we managed to upset a team known as Swole Patrol back then, which had like Freakazoid, Clown, Flash Step, and those big names. And we kind of made a name for ourselves there. And from then on, we were always like the 3rd or 4th ranked invite team in America for that time in Source, but Source was kind of dead around then too. So yeah, and then CSGO came out, and some of us made the transition.
Right. So when it comes to CSGO, I mean, how did you transition to this game? Like, how did you feel about it? You know, coming from Source, where you were, you know, considered a pretty good opera in North America towards the tail end of Counter-Strike Source. How did you transition into CSGO? Was it difficult for you? Was it easy for you? You know, how did that transition take place to the Global Offensive for you as a player?
When ESA first had that beta season of CSGO, it was like that test out season when CSGO was in beta. The game was actually felt like pretty broken. It was like a completely different game to what it is now.
Right.
And so a lot of us like just didn't enjoy playing the game at all. We didn't want to embrace it. We didn't think it was going to catch on. But then by the time the first actual season of CSGO Invite came around, I teamed up with 3 1.6 players from a team called UMX Ultimax Gaming. Well, I brought along one of my Source teammates, Stan, who had a brief stint with Curse, I think it was. And so that's when CSGO started getting the regular updates, and the game started becoming a much better and fun game to play, you know? And that's when we started to make the full transition to CSGO and stop playing Source.
Right.
That first season.
So I guess like the one portion of your CSGO career prior to Denial that people might actually know about was, I guess it was season 14 when you were playing with Frost Gaming, and you went to the season 14 ESEA LAN. This is the second time we had an international CSGO LAN, but I think NIP was actually the only European team that showed up to that event.
Yeah.
And that was probably the first time that like people that didn't follow Counter-Strike prior to CSGO probably saw you for the first time. I don't think you were even streaming it at this point, so this would have been like your first blip on the radar, so to speak, as a player. And it didn't go terribly, but it didn't go amazing either. So you weren't like a breakout player, but you didn't necessarily do so poorly that you caught like all this crazy flack like some other North Americans have gotten in their first ESEA LAN events. So, I mean, what was that experience like, getting kind of your first taste of Counter-Strike Global Offensive on like a pretty serious competitive level?
Well, yeah, actually, that was like I joined Frost Gaming after like an 8-month break from CS for like a variety of reasons, my first year of college and stuff. And so they asked me to play with them. We made the LAN, and it was kind of like a last-minute roster. We didn't really practice. It was a pug for the LAN, so we went in with nothing to lose, and we ended up knocking out United 5 and Monomaniac, the 2 other American teams, and we only lost to NIP and Complexity, who ended up in the finals. So overall, like with nothing to lose, we thought it was a pretty good event for us. Still, like, I think past our expectations, like what people expected us to do and our own.
Right.
So it was definitely like a nice welcome back into the CS scene after my break too.
So I guess that would mean that your first real serious team would have been like Denial, which was the team that you played with, you know, the past season of ESEA, leading up to ESEA LAN, and of course the past season of SIVO as well, which is where we really kind of got like our first look at you on a real structured team, so to speak.
Yeah.
So maybe why don't you tell us a little bit about your time with Denial and kind of how things went, and that'll kind of transition into us talking about Cloud9 and then you joining the team.
So Denial, I joined around the beginning of this summer. They gave me the offer. They needed an opper after I think it was Monty or Neil that left.
Right.
And so that was actually like the first, like throughout my CS career, all the teams I played on, we played somewhat casually. Like, yeah, we played to win, but, you know, it was kind of a side thing, a hobby thing. Denial was actually the first team where we actually got on to practice every day. Even if we didn't feel like playing, we still got on because it's something we felt like we had to do. And it was the first team we actually took seriously because we thought CSGO is getting to this point where even in America with all the stuff coming up, that we could be the third best, like the third team that's a powerhouse in America, you know? And so everyone was motivated to play, which is different from all the other teams I've played in as well. But we were still all full-time students. Well, most of us were full-time students who just played because of a passion for playing the game.
Right. So I guess my question would be this, is like when people look back at Denial now, because at this point, you kind of have to consider Denial, even now after you've left, based on, you know, how they've been doing online. I mean, your team has always been like a pretty good online team. Like there was, you know, I think Hitbox Arena where you took third. There was that one, I think it was the Face It Milan qualifiers for Italy where you guys took iBuyPower to some crazy overtime match on Dust 2 and actually almost got the spot to Milan instead of iBuyPower. Remember that famous quote from Steel was like, "I'm going to Milan," like in the middle of the overtime.
Yeah, it was an intense match.
It was very intense. And I mean, so your team, you know, always had these strong performances online, but offline, like the Season 5 CVOT LAN went really poorly, right? You got 0-2'd by Cloud9, pretty one-sided losses, and same thing with Mousepaz in the lower bracket 0-2, and individually you all kind of didn't really have a great event. But then ESEA LAN comes around, and this is an event where everyone kind of steps it up. It was actually funny because when you guys picked up Anger, everybody thought that was going to be your rock because of the experience that he had, his ability to frag very well. I mean, he was easily the most experienced player on your team. But he actually was the one who performed the worst on the team throughout the entire event. Yet, I mean, it was really Naf who stepped up the most, in my opinion. But you and Fugly also had, you know, a pretty good event. So the point is I think from an outside perspective, everyone kind of sees that this team is now rising up and now has potential. So why walk away from that, I guess, would be the point. Did you really feel that, like, that team had plateaued and you wouldn't be able to build up anymore and challenge some of these other teams in NA? Or was it just the offer of C9 was just too lucrative to pass up? I mean, maybe tell us about that.
Well, I definitely thought that Denial had the capability of doing that for a while, but that was just the one chance we did have to prove it. ESEA LAN, you know, like that's really the only opportunity to play international teams and on LAN, because you have these upsets online and people usually just write it off because, you know, like it is a LAN game as well. So that was probably, ESEA LAN was probably the peak of Denial, especially with the Cloud9 upset and the triple overtime with Titan and such. But the thing was, is at that point, I was thinking to myself as well, was that we were still a team of full-time students. We actually didn't really get to practice a lot because everyone had different things going on. So we practiced like 1 to 2 days a week sometimes, which, like at this point, I thought that like while I still am able to, or while I still can, I'm young and I'm still like playing this game, I'd love to try and take it full time. And while the team wasn't exactly motivated the same way I was, and people didn't really want to put the same amount of time and attention to the game as I did. And then, I mean, Cloud9 gave me that opportunity.
So you're really saying that like no one else on the Nile wanted to commit as much time to you? It's because it seems like a lot of them do play a lot. So was it just still not enough for you, or?
Um, I mean, I will never like say anyone's names or anything, but I mean, some people just weren't as motivated to take the game as seriously as others, and that caused conflicts with like team practice and such. So, yeah, I mean, who knows now? They have adreN. I think he still works full time, so that works out with him too and their schedule. But I definitely wanted to take the opportunity to commit a lot of time to the game.
Yeah, no
See
one's
where I
gonna
can
no
take it.
one's gonna blame you for taking an opportunity to join one of the best teams in North America with as good of a pedigree as they have. So I mean, I don't think there's any question there on that. But let's actually talk a little bit about Cloud9 before we actually get into. I mean, we already kind of got into you joining the team and why you decided to join the team, but maybe we'll talk a little bit about Cloud9 prior to picking you up and kind of where they stood, what their issues were, and then why you might be a good asset to the team and how you might be able to help them turn things around. And then we'll get your opinion on if you think you can do that or not, right? So Cloud9, if you look at like their deeper past, and this goes back to even when they were Complexity, this was always a team that was like North America's great hope whenever it came to international competition. I mean, granted, it always seemed like the iBuyPower guys did better on North American soil, like when it came to ESEA lands and online, because Cloud9's always been really inconsistent online, to be honest. But they've always kind of stepped up on land, and everyone always knew they would step up on land. And there was a time where Complexity, like back when iBuyPower was still cursed, where Cole actually had the head-to-head advantage over the other great North American team as well. But as time shifted, iBuyPower started to get kind of the head-to-head advantage. But Cloud9 would still always have the better, international results. They were always a team that make it out of groups at the majors, and so that was kind of the team that we always kind of put our faith in, so to speak. But there definitely seemed to be a drop-off that took place in the last, 6 months or so. And it starts with Cologne, where that was kind of their last good event, so to speak. Whereas, they made it out of groups. They had this crazy, OT win against Titan on Dust 2. They had this crazy win on Dignitas against Mirage after some miracle plays by, like, Hiko. And then they went on to play NIP, who also at the time is starting to get into their slump period as well.
Yeah.
And they had two, 16-14 losses that eliminated from the tournament to take top 8. So, like I said, this was their last really good event. But then, all of a sudden, things just kind of went down south. And that was, of course, the tandem of FACEIT and ESWC, where they got eliminated in groups both times. Now, to be fair, ESWC was kind of rough. They went 4-1 and got eliminated in groups. So I don't really hold that against them too heavily. I mean,
sure.
the only loss they took was against LDLC on Inferno, their best map. So it wasn't like they did terribly at ESWC. But, at FACEIT, because they split with Virtus Pro, it almost like they did kind of deserve to get eliminated, right? Because they didn't beat Virtus Pro when they needed to. Is really the point. They played. I think Sean Gares famously said they played one bad half of CS at FACEIT, and that's what eliminated them from the tournament.
I think that one bad half on Inferno came down to their result as ESWC as well. So it's kind of unfortunate.
Right. Which against LDLC was like probably 100% expected, but I mean, Cloud9's players always actually had some success against Virtus Pro head to head. Even though Virtus Pro is obviously ranked much higher than them. They're ranked like 3rd in the world now by most people's standards. But head-to-head, like at ESEA LAN, for example, they were able to do pretty well against them, though. I know like Snacks obviously had some issues at that event, coming in really late and having some huge family issues to sort out. So people kind of put an asterisk next to that head-to-head matchup. But, they split maps with them at FACEIT. They beat them at ESWC in a best-of-1. So, and then some online events. I think it was like Case King. They had some close matches as well. So that's kind of where it was at. But the big thing was the boot camp stage, where these guys committed so much time to prepping, from what I understand. And during the boot camp phase, they also were playing Case King. And they actually had some pretty impressive performances in Case King in the sense that you could tell that they had made some changes and that some of the changes they had made were working out. We finally had nothing stepping up really big in this online event, which is something we hadn't seen since like season 16 ESEA LAN against Virtus Pro.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like on fire, and people were
Yeah,
hoping that
that was
this
a
would
crazy event.
we were hoping that this would transition to DreamHack Winter. But once again, DreamHack Winter, this is the first time they've gone out in groups in a major. You know, besides placing top 4 at the original one, after famously beating teams like Very Games and Hellraisers.
DreamHack Winter.
Yeah, exactly. 2013 DreamHack Winter. They come into DreamHack Winter 2014, and they lose to Hellraisers, which that team looked on fire in group play. I mean, they beat Fnatic, too, so, I mean, that was just insane.
Yeah.
And then they beat Bravado, which, I mean, that was, like, pretty expected, right? And then they went against Fnatic, and I think most people thought that was, like, they had to get through Hellraisers. Like, Hellraisers was the gatekeeper for you know, Cloud9 to get out of that group in most people's eyes, and they couldn't get it done. And if Fnatic would have beaten Hellraisers, and Hellraisers would have got the rematch against Cloud9, the lower bracket final for the decider, who knows what would have happened, right? But the point is, it didn't happen that way, and then they lost. And then to add insult to injury, you guys put him out of ESEA LAN earlier than what most people would have expected for them, with some close matches on Mirage and Inferno. So, obviously, you can see the downward spiral that Cloud9 has experienced. And what makes it even tougher to swallow is the amount of time commitment they really did make. It almost makes it seem as if they really did plateau. I mean, they spent so much time preparing for DreamHack Winter that it's almost like they did exhaust all their resources at that point, and they really were left with no choice but to hope that some miracle happens with their lineup and things do eventually get better, or make a change going into the new year to hopefully spice things up. What are your thoughts on this downward spiral that I've kind of described when you're watching Cloud9 as, like, you know, an outside person, because, you know, you're on denial at this point? What was going through your head as you were watching one of North America's great teams kind of lose traction, so to speak?
In like the last 4 to 5 months, like I really don't want to write off their Face It, ESWC, and like DreamHack Winter performances because, like as you said, the Face It and ESWC groups came down to one half of one map that decided their group. They still went 4-1 in their ESWC group, and they still put up like decent results at those lands. Of course, it wasn't expected like they have before. And then a month-long boot camp is pretty crazy. Like that's a lot of CS. I mean, Hellraisers before Cologne had over a month-long boot camp as well, if I remember correctly. Then they went out in groups and they lost 16-1 to Epsilon on Inferno, which is pretty ridiculous at a major. So, like, I can't really say, like, as I wasn't on the team at that point, what the actual problems were going on with their maybe not having defined roles could be a problem. Or, you know, Sean said that he didn't want to op anymore. But I'm sure that the boot camp was still a learning experience. Like, I'm sure they took a lot from it anyways, despite the not so great performance in the end at DreamHack Winter. But they did play like a Hellraisers that was dominant, not destroyed, but definitely took down Fnatic, who was considered top 1 at the time. And then they had to play Fnatic, who was considered top 1 at the time. So, like, you can't really write off their European performances lately. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand where you're coming from on that, and that's certainly true, especially when it comes to ESWC. I mean, that's just tough going 4-1 and still not advancing out of groups. And if they would have somehow made it out of groups there, maybe they do something to kind of like tilt the downward spiral back upwards. But I think the biggest, I mean, I honestly think that they were thinking about making changes before ESEA LAN even started. If I was to like be quite honest about it, it seems very likely that they already had it in their heads that something probably needed to give. But obviously, you weren't going to make a change in a week. You know, it's right. You know, there was only a week period between the two events.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, 5th, 6th place at ESEA LAN, I think, is by far their worst placing on North American turf in any form or fashion, except for maybe some crazy online events. But I think for the most part that has to be their lowest placing ever.
Yeah.
So that is certainly something I'm sure that weighed on them quite a lot, if we were honest about it. But I think when it comes to thinking about Cloud9's issues, maybe we can try to talk about those and see what we think they might have been. Obviously, it's a new team now with you, so, you know, we don't know. But I think some of the things that you could definitely point to about Cloud9 is the lack of having a home map, and I'm not the first person to bring this up. Thorin brought this up quite a lot as well.
Yeah.
In the sense that they didn't really have a map that they could rely on as their bread and butter to get them through wins. I mean, I would contend that a bit. I think they do have one home map, which I think is Cache, because if you look at Clone to today, they actually have an 80% win rate on Cache.
Yeah,
and this
I
includes
agree.
wins against, really good teams like Virtus Pro. So I think Cache is actually a map they probably could rely on to this day. But the biggest one was Inferno. This is a map that they felt was really strong for them, but this might surprise you. Their win rate since Cologne on Inferno, only 22%. That is really rough. Now, granted, some of those losses come to teams like Fnatic and LDLC, where that's like their powerhouse map. So
Yeah.
no matter how good you are on Inferno, you're probably still losing to those two teams. So that's two of their losses there. So maybe it averages out to be like more of like a 30 to 40% map for them. But even still, it's not that strong above 50% rating you want to have. And they didn't really like Overpass or Cobblestone. Mirage is also a map infamously that North Americans don't really like to play in international competition. So that's obviously one issue we could point to. Any thoughts on the map rotation issues for Cloud9? Did you kind of see that yourself, or do you think it's blown out of proportion, or what?
I have kind of seen it myself. I agree with the Cache statement. That's why when I played with Denal, we played them. Cache was the first map we vetoed, I believe, because I always personally thought they were really strong on Cache, and that's a map I didn't want to play against them. I did notice that they ended up playing Inferno a lot, and it wasn't their strongest. We even played them in Inferno at ESEA, and so I know since I've joined the team, we started going over maps and what we want to do. That was definitely something that was brought up, and that's definitely something that's going to change at this point with me on the roster in 2015. Yeah.
There you go. So the other problem that people would point to with Cloud9 would be actually Nothing, the player Jordan Nothing Gilbert. This guy has had a lot of potential and hype swarming around him ever since the end of 1.6, when he was like the young gun superstar of NA Counter-Strike in general. And then when he came into Go, everyone was hoping that would transfer, and he's had a lot of hype surrounding him. And I still think that Nothing probably has one of the highest potentials in all of NACS if he could actually hit it and stay there pretty consistently. Not to say that I expect this guy to drop 30 bombs every single match that he plays or something crazy like that. Of course, no one can hit their peak that consistently. But at least, hitting like 80%, 90% on a pretty regular level, and at least fragging like second, third on the team, because he is good enough to be in that position for Cloud9 as far as fragging goes. But we kind of talked about it. He had that one all-star performance in Season 16 of ESEA LAN where he had that crazy set against, I think he dropped like 90 frags in 3 maps or something like that against Virtus Pro. That was like this crazy, and that whole event he actually did quite well. But then he kind of tapered off. Then all of a sudden at Case King he looks really solid during like the boot camp phase of Cloud9 going into DreamHack Winter. But he had a rough LAN at Face It for sure. ESWC was actually probably okay for him individually, but Face It definitely struggled, and then DreamHack Winter 2014 definitely struggled. So this is another factor that people point at, but it's also a sore topic because it's almost like no one wants to criticize this guy because he's like the most likable person in North America, and for good reason. He's an awesome PR guy for Cloud9 and just a great streamer, and just he's genuinely one of the nicest people I've probably ever met in the community.
Yeah, definitely.
And he definitely has talent, but I think even he would admit that he has struggled to find a consistent track in this game. Is that something that also you see and other teammates see and worry about, or is this blown out of proportion in your opinion?
I definitely think it's blown out of proportion because I feel like that a lot of people, analysts in the community, they hold these players to really high expectations that if the whole team isn't winning or performing as a team, then of course you're not going to have a great individual statistics or performance. At Face It, you said he had a rough event. Well, overall the team went, I think it was 1-3 in the group stage. And if you're losing 3 maps and only winning 1, then you can't expect him to always be performing amazingly. And I just think that people hold these players to way higher expectations all the time when people are always going to have bad events or bad matches. And I mean, the Season 16 ESEA LAN against Virtus Pro definitely shows he's got an insanely high skill ceiling. Everyone knows that, and that's definitely capable of coming out even consistently.
Yeah, I think no one questions that he has a high skill ceiling. I think people just, including myself, worry if he'll ever be able to consistently match that high skill ceiling, because it seems like out of his entire CS:GO career, I can really only point to like maybe 3 or 4 events out of probably like the 15 plus that he's played where I really felt like he was on point. And there were other events where he did good, but I just wasn't like, oh man, I'm so impressed. You know what I mean? And he's also had a lot of events where he hasn't really been up there. And I know you just said, well, you go 1-3 in an event. How do you expect someone to be able to put up big numbers? But you could take the other side of the argument and say, oh, because he wasn't putting up big numbers is why they did so poorly at the event. I guess my point is that before it was a commitment issue with the guy. He wasn't really dedicated to the game. He didn't care as much. But I would like to think that ever since Cloud9 sponsored this team, he has obviously been way more dedicated. The fact that he really wanted to see that boot camp happen, and he was a strong voice in support of taking such a measure. I don't think the dedication is an issue with this guy anymore. I think people still point to that unfairly. He is dedicated now. Now there's something else. There's some other obstacle or roadblock, I think, in his way that he needs to sort out. And hopefully that'll happen. That's almost separate from you, but it's not, because maybe if you're doing your job, then that frees up his ability to do his thing as well.
Yeah.
So I just think that is a somewhat relevant issue that we could talk about with Cloud9. Now, the other thing is roles, which is what you were talking about, which I think is where you do come in pretty big. Sean not wanting the op anymore. They had Simphis kind of doing it for a little while. Then it was almost as if at DreamHack Winter and Case King and stuff, it's almost as if Sean did kind of step more into opping again. But I mean, here was the other issue. Sean no one questions his ability to in-game lead and his intelligence, but people have said, oh, he's struggled to consistently be able to match his fragging with the rest of the team. But I think at Cologne he was amazing. He fragged really well for them at Cologne.
Even recently, dude. I think he's been putting up great numbers. Like, if you actually look at the statistics, he's been playing insanely well, and he doesn't get enough credit for it.
I agree 100%, but I think that most of those good numbers matches comes from him when he is a predominant rifler and not when he has the op. And so this is why, like, regardless of what anyone says about whether like this was a good move from Cloud9 to lose Hiko, first you have to understand that Hiko decided to leave. It's not like they cut him or kicked him. Yeah. So it's almost forced to a decision to pick up someone. This is why picking up an opera makes 100% sense. I mean, what do you think about this as far as roles and how you'll change that?
Yeah, I definitely think having defined roles on the team is going to be a huge help. And like having me like as a dedicated operator that can like dynamically fit into the team, not playing like, just set positions, here we go, but we like have things change around, roam around, keep things moving. I think it's only going to help. I mean, we're going to have to prove it.
So what are the roles now, do you think, on the team with you being implemented?
I mean, I'm going to be the dedicated operator. Sean's going to continue in-game leading. And I believe maybe Sean or Shroud, like, we're still discussing what we're going to do on each map. We're going over this stuff. I mean, I just joined the team. But I think the lurking type role that Hiko had, I think either Sean or Shroud will take over.
Okay.
And
you'll have kind of nothing, and Simphis kind of being your more entry
primary rifles, yeah.
Right on. So here's the other thing. A lot of people keep bringing up that this is a bad move because they theoretically lost their best player to bring in someone who is somewhat of a gamble on a couple of different levels, and we'll talk about that. I mean, do you feel like Cloud9 does take a huge step back from losing Hiko? I think most people would say they would, but do you feel it's as big of a step back as like a lot of people in the community are saying it is?
I mean, of course, my opinion is going to be a bit biased, but no, I don't think it's as big as the community thinks it is. I mean, it was Hiko's choice to step back, and I mean, if he doesn't want to play, I don't know if it's necessarily with those guys or if it's like what the situation is revolving around it. But if he doesn't want to play, then you can't expect the kind of results than as someone that does want to play, that does want to play with the people that he's playing with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very clear after what has happened with Hiko filling in for iBuyPower as a stand-in for MLG Aspen that we kind of can tell where his motivations lie for the future, but nothing's confirmed has been the favorite quote used throughout this entire process. But I mean, it's pretty safe to say that he'll probably find himself a home there if he decides to be there. But we won't get into that too much just yet. We'll talk about iBuyPower in a second. But
Mm-hmm.
the other big thing, there's two reasons why people would see you as a risk, and then I'll let you respond to these. This will probably be the most controversial part of the episode, if you screw up.
All right.
Anyway, so first off is people, this includes myself, I'll put my neck out there, I said this too, would say that, well, you're a big gamble because you've only really had one good offline event in your entire CSGO career. So is this not a valid point to make, that makes you somewhat of a gamble for a team like Cloud9 that is on a downward spiral that they need to come back from?
I mean, I'd have to disagree,
Go
I guess
for it.
to say. I can't lie that SIVA was not the best performance for myself, but I mean, as a whole team, we didn't win a single map that
Right.
entire LAN. It was our first LAN as a team. Back in season 14, Frost Gaming was the only other ESCA LAN or big major LAN that I went to, and I mean, getting fourth, we like individually. I mean, I put up the same statistics I do online, so I mean, I don't think it's justified saying that, but I haven't played on an international big stage, so that in that aspect it is
Right,
a
exactly.
risk, but I'm confident in my abilities, so, and it just makes me more motivated.
Well, I think risk have worked in NA already. Shroud was a risk when he first got picked up by Cloud9. He's obviously, been paying off for the most part. Nitro was a big risk for iBuyPower. He paid off for them for his time that was there. You could say the same thing about DaZeD. He was a risk, and he didn't do like incredible, but he held his own in Cologne, and he didn't really get any other opportunities past that yet. So my point is like the recent risks that teams have taken in NA have panned out. So if
Yeah.
the trend follows, you would be next in line to be a gamble that pays off. But so here's the thing: the only real issue then with like your skill level is you've proven that you can do really well. It's going to be consistency is going to be like your hurdle, similarly to someone like Jordan. So what do you? I mean, do you feel comfortable that you can consistently be at that level you were at ESCA LAN going forward?
Yeah, I definitely do feel comfortable that I can like keep my play consistent, like I showed at the ESA LAN. Um, Especially being around like committing my full time to this and being around a team that's also committing their full time around to this. Like, yeah, I have no doubt about it.
So, what do you think changed between, say, CEVO LAN and ESCA LAN to allow you to show your potential more or whatever? Like, what do you think it was that got you to that point?
SIVA LAN we kind of jumped into. What was our first LAN as a team? I wouldn't say we had the best preparation, but ESA LAN we really studied the teams we were expected to play. Titan, I mean, I think we surprised a lot of people, although we went 2-0 against them, but like our matches were close, and we did study them before we played. We put the time in. Me and Daps watched demos of like all the recent matches in the past, like DreamHack Stockholm and such.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially and like at that point,
Uh-oh. Did I go down or did ShahZaM go down? Uh-oh. I'm gonna guess it was ShahZaM who went down. Hold on a second, folks. Hopefully we can get him back real quick. Was it you?
I just blue screen, so I'm starting up my PC.
Alright.
Yeah, if you give me like 2 minutes.
Is this on your phone?
Yeah,
Okay. Alright. So ShahZam's PC blue screen. We'll be right back, guys.
I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Alright, folks. So just give us a second to get ShahZaM back, and we'll continue the episode there. Apparently his PC just blue screened all over the place. And yeah. So, we'll be right back. Just waiting for the guy to get back here as soon as he tells me. What an anticlimactic end. That's it, folks. Show's over. Well, I mean, he was calling me on his phone, and he has to get back on his PC, so... Started up his hacks for an interview. That would be impressive. There's a Super XO for Skype interviews now. It gives you plus 10% honesty to all your answers, from what I understand. Guess this means I can't have a nice, sick highlight upload to YouTube. I actually have to download these VODs and patch them together. Darn. So basically, folks, to do a recap of what we talked about thus far, we introduced ShahZaM. We talked a bit about his history in Counter-Strike Source. We talked about his transition to CSGO. We talked about his time with Denial and how they started off kind of poorly, but, you know, this last ESA LAN kind of rose up and were showing potential. We talked about his decision to, you know, walk away from that to take an opportunity at Cloud9. We also talked a bit about how Cloud9's fared thus far since Cologne and kind of their somewhat slump that they've had in recent European events. We talked about why is that the case, about some of the issues the team has had, such as not well-defined roles with the op, you know, nothing's consistency, and their lack of having like a really strong home map they could rely on to get them through tough sets. And then we've talked about, you know, the risks that ShahZaM presented to Cloud9 when he was, you know, recruited. So far, we talked about, you know, him only really having like one big breakout event so far in CSGO, so it's kind of an unknown or question mark on whether or not he'll be able to be consistent. And we're about to get to the other risk that ShahZaM presents. After that, we'll talk a bit about how he got brought into the team and how things are going so far. And then we'll move on to some of the other NA roster changes that took place recently. Then we'll talk a bit about the latest CSGO patch with the CZ nerf and things like that. We'll also talk a bit about MLG Aspen, and then we'll talk about some of the other just news around the scene, like, you know, more North American organizations coming into the game or different things like that. So that is some of the things that we have discussed. Apparently there was another roster change while I was doing this show, so I'll keep an eye out for that. I might add that to the docket. I don't know if confirmed or not. Was there seriously a roster change right in the middle of this episode? Did that really happen? Oh, yeah, it was actually announced. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I'll just add this is totally fine. Perfect timing. I'll just add that right to the document I had for the show. We'll just filter that in just as normal. Okay. Yep, I saw the tweet from Denial. We'll just throw that. The VOD will look perfect. I know this looks really shit live to everyone, but the VOD will come out. Well, VOD will come out perfect for later. So just bear with me. All right, he said he's ready. The VOD will look great. It's gonna look great for the roster changes, but oh, no answer.
Hey.
You good?
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that.
Yep, you're ruined, dude. This is actually perfect timing for your webcam to come off, because we're about to talk about the second reason why you're risky, which is your poor PR up until this point. And look at you, man. You're just living to the hype. I'm just messing with you, man. But no,
It's okay.
So that was actually the next thing, though, seriously, because we talked about, you know, your risk that you might present to Cloud9 based on the fact that okay, I'll put it this way. There was a question mark over you on how you'll perform in the future, because theoretically I really only have one event to go to where I can say this is a strong performance from ShahZaM. He's proving himself. Granted, you haven't really played a lot of events either, so that makes it even more hard to really point to where you're at. So at best, you show potential, but the consistency is a question mark. So the next big reason why people might say it's your risk for Cloud9 is Cloud9 has always kind of prided themselves on solid PR. They've never really had any PR issues that I can recall. However, when we look at ShahZaM as a player, between karma cleanups, choice things said on Twitch chat, and maybe some forum posts you might regret, at best you are a controversial figure in the scene. Some people love you, like in your stream, and get along with you really well. Others look at you and see you as somewhat shady. I don't really know. There was some Daily Dot articles that didn't flatter you. I mean, just give a general response to all this, man. Like, I don't want to go piece by piece, but I'd like to give you your chance to put you on the pedestal and let you preach to the choir here, or preach to the listeners where you stand.
Well, I know that the guys on Cloud9, including the management, probably wouldn't have even considered me if they thought that would be something that can't be changed, or that can't be, like, if they thought that was something that was really a serious problem. It is definitely something that people probably considered. I mean, I've read plenty of good and bad things about it. But these guys I've met at multiple ESA LANs, even SIVO LAN, and they know me as a person, And so, like, despite what a lot of people say, I hope I can use this opportunity to kind of reintroduce myself. And despite a lot of people saying bad things, there are a lot of supporters, and I'm really appreciative about it. And anything else just motivates me to win and train hard, and I just gotta play my game and show who I am.
So, would you admit that you've made some mistakes in the past and that you just need to work to better yourself? Or would you say the mistakes people point to are a bit, once again, I'll use my famous blown out of proportion phase. I use that a lot this show already. But, I mean, where do you stand in your view on yourself thus far?
Of course, when I was a lot younger into the invite scene, I definitely made some mistakes that I do regret. And lately, of course, personally, I think they're blown out of proportion, but as well, there are mistakes that I have made. Everyone makes mistakes. I mean, that's just something that happens, but it's not something that I'm going to let hold me back.
Right.
In a sense.
So you would just say going forward, you're going to work on that, is basically what you're saying. Work to better that element.
Yeah, I mean,
was this something that got brought up in the recruitment process? Like, hey, ShahZaM, I mean, we need you to cool it, or is this not a non-issue?
No, it's nothing extra out of the ordinary or standard, but you need to understand that it's just one article or one article or statement that could ruin a player or a team, like Fnatic and the whole witch hunt situation, for an example. One big thing or one article could just ruin reputation for a team and be blown out of proportion, like you like to say. So
okay, so we'll actually talk about how did Cloud9 approach you? How did you even become on their radar to be I mean, obviously, well, once again, clarify, Hiko left the team, so Cloud9 had to make a change at that point because Hiko felt like he wanted to continue his career elsewhere. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But so Cloud9 had no choice but to make a roster addition. How do you become a blip on their radar as someone they would like to pick up?
Honestly, I don't know the time frame of their discussions and decision, but it was this past weekend, or I think it was Saturday, that Jordan approached me just casually over Steam. He's like, "Hey, I want to gauge the possibility of if you plan on staying with your team, because you definitely are an option and such." And just started out with discussion with him, and then it moved on to discussion with the rest of the team.
Now, some people, including myself, have made observations that you have not always gotten along with some of the guys on this team. I guess, most notably would be Synthus. How do you overlook stuff like that? Is it just about winning at that point? Got to overlook the past, or was it never really actually that bad? Was it motivated like a joke, or just friendly trash talk, or what have you?
It never really was actually that bad. Any in-game rivalries, you'll be surprised. Most people really don't take past the game, past the moment. Sivo and ESA LAN, I hung out with the guys at Cloud9. I mean, I casually talk to them, especially like people bring up like the me and Semfis rivalry. No, like I mean, we're casually talking throughout the event, so it's just it's nothing past the game.
So it's just a issue, like a situation where viewers just maybe read too much into in-game chat.
Yeah, definitely.
That happened recently too with Lucky. He said some stuff about Mousebaz being online and getting 16-0'd on LAN, but he was a part of the team when they got 16-0'd on LAN, so it was a joke on himself, not you know like an insult. So yeah, sometimes things get. That was just a recent example I saw on Reddit and like stuff like that. So that's just kind of an example of sometimes when you take things out of context, you don't really understand what's going on. It can be bad. So I think that would maybe be kind of what happened with you and Semfis as well. Because I think the comment people point to was at ESEA LAN when you said, like, easy, and then he was like, this is why people hate you, or something like that. And you're like, sorry, that meant that to be MM1, or whatever. And I guess it's just one little chat line, man, will just create a whole storyline of how you're bitter enemies or something like that in real life.
Yeah, people really read into it a lot, and it's nothing past that point. It's really nothing.
So based on all the issues we talked about Cloud9 and, you know, the issues that they've had and the tournament results that they've had, do you really, like, let's say you had no idea that you were going to be approached about this team. What do you think would have been the best roster move for Cloud9 if it wouldn't have been you? Do you think it still should have been an Opper, or what do you think they needed?
If Hiko still left, are you saying in the situation where Hiko left and it was just the 4 before they added me?
Right, yeah. Because obviously people would probably say just keep the 5 and work things out because Hiko's so good, but that obviously wasn't an option. So, yeah, I mean, if you weren't the one, who do you think would have been, you know, more options for them?
In my personal viewpoint, I definitely think they just needed an Opper. If not me, I think that it was pretty clear that they didn't have someone that really wanted to dedicate to opping, and that's what the meta needs right now. So I definitely think, if not me, like North America does have great oppers. So
right.
Yeah.
So let's go down the list of oppers they could have picked besides you to try to solidify why you're actually probably the best option. There is Mo, but Mo's probably the one person in North America that has worse PR than you, for one. And that's not a shot at him, but the whole cheating thing obviously took a huge stab at him and probably still, you know, causes issue for him to this day. Also, he's banned from ESEA, so he can't even compete in, like, 30 to 40% of what they would do going forward because, you know, ESEA and CBRO and now MLG are, like, the only 3 things to compete for in NA. So when he's banned from a third of that, that obviously hurts you. It means you have to use a stand-in for one league. So basically, he's just not even an option if you want to pick up an Opper. adreN would
still
be
definitely a good player, though.
Oh yeah, he's a good Opper. He's probably a top 5 Opper in NA if you just look at skill alone. But I mean, being banned from ESEA kills it. I mean, for the most part.
That's a big thing.
The other name you could pull up, or I think there's only 2 other names really that I would pull up actually, because you can't get Skadoodle. That's out of the question. So you might as well just that would be the #1 guy, but you can't get him. So then that leaves you, adreN, and JDM, and that's it.
I think people write off. No, I think people write off XP3. I think he's actually a really good Opper too.
Yeah, that is true, but I guess he maybe would consider leaving Elevate for an offer like Cloud9, but I mean, he seems to be more of like playing with friends, which is what Elevate is kind of like.
Yeah, but he definitely has the skill.
Oh yeah, there's no question about that. He's definitely shown that at times. So I think adreN maybe was the career thing. I don't know if I just think he had like if you compare him straight to you, he just has a lot of experience and he's also a good Opper and he could even help with like strats.
Definitely. Yeah.
So what do you think gave you the edge over all these other candidates to be the one they chose?
I mean, I wasn't a part of their decision-making process.
Right.
But
if you just had to weigh yourself against these guys, what do you like? If this was an interview and I'm Cloud9, I'm like, you know, why should we pick you? This is the classic interview question too. It's like, why should we pick you over the other candidates? Like, what would you say? Like, what do you think your edge is?
I'd imagine they're just looking for like players that are like recently proven Oppers, and more so not just dedicated Oppers, but like well-rounded players. I guess like I like to consider myself like a Counter-Strike player. I'm not just an Opper. I can use the other guns as well. You know, I think to like a sufficient ability, like capability, I guess. Yeah. So I'm sure they wanted to weigh in that option too. Not someone that can just strictly op and not be able to AK when needed. You know. So
Right, and that was kind of the criticism that JDM faces a lot, is not having as strong of a rifle. Um, Also, I guess the other strong point for you would be just, like you said, the dedication, the amount of hours you put into the game, your availability now. I think you recently
yeah,
mentioned off stream that you're actually taking time off school to commit 100% to Counter-Strike.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Talk a little bit about that. That's actually kind of big news that people will probably be like, whoa, this guy's committed. So let's tell us a little bit about that decision.
Yeah, it was a pretty big decision. Like everyone else on C9 is fully like dedicating full-time CS, and so there's no question that if I took the offer, that I definitely would have to like would want to as well commit full-time to CS. And I understand that like this is kind of like an opportunity where I can always go back to school at any time. I've only got a year and a half left, and so I was definitely in a position like I'm just about to finish my last final tomorrow, and then I just take off like where and I can just resume at any point. I cleared it with like my school and such, and so I'm in like a safe position to take a break from school, and it's something I want to do, and my parents even support it.
So, I mean, was this a complete individual decision, or was this something like Cloud9 wanted to see you do, or was this all on you? They would have supported you no matter what?
It was all on me. They would have supported me no matter.
Right on. So I guess we'll see a lot more ShahZaM stream and a lot more practice.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome, man. So, do you have any final comments about your particular position in the NA roster shuffle before we move on to some of the other roster shuffles, or not?
I know it probably surprised a lot of people, but I think that like it surprised a lot of people, especially leaving Denial off that success. But I think that they are still in a great position with adreN in a way. Like I don't think that's a loss for them as well, and that's what a lot of people were concerned about too. But I'm comfortable so far. Yeah, I'm ready to prove it.
So is the future bright for Cloud9? Are we going to see a crazy team at Aspen in a month?
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, we'll just leave it at that. So I guess naturally, when it involves you, and you'll be able to put good insight on this, we'll talk about the Niles roster changes now. Okay, so the first roster change would be the direct replacement for you, which is adreN, which was one of these other candidates we talked about for Cloud9. Personally, I think Denial came out pretty well at this deal. Not to say, like, they upgraded and haha ShahZaM, like the joke's on you, Denial got the better deal. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I think that that was probably one of the other really good options and operas that you could pick up.
Definitely.
And I think he'll be able to help DaZeD with in-game leading. I think that his op is very powerful. So I think this is a good, about as best as Denial could have gotten out of the situation when you left the team. Any thoughts on this pickup there?
The adreN, I mean, he's got an insane amount of experience. He's one of the smartest players. I think he's one of the smartest players as well in North America. And the thing is that the in-game leading thing's huge, because I know during my time on Denial, like Daps was our in-game leader. He was always looking for someone since Neil left for that second input, because having second input as an in-game leader is something that like you always want a different perspective or someone that can come up with ideas when you run out of them. And adreN's like the person to do that for them. And I know that's something he wanted, so
yeah, absolutely.
It'll be nothing but help. And that just makes me excited. Like there's like with the roster shuffles, there's all these other teams that like it's gonna be competitive.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right, because when you look at in-game leaders in North America, you obviously kind of put like DaZeD at kind of like maybe your number one spot, or most people do this because he has that in-game fragging ability that's really skilled on top of being able to call very well. And then you look at names like Sean Garrett and Simphis as well, their stints of calling for Cloud9 and the success that they were able to achieve. So those are like three names you toss out. Steel would probably get added in there as well. He was like the secondary input for iBuyPower when he was, playing with them. But I think adreN probably is at least number 5, like on the in-game leader list for North America.
It's
so
definitely up there,
yeah. Yeah, if not even better than some of the other names that I mentioned at in-game leading. But either way, his name comes up, and so yeah, I think this actually will help Denial out quite a lot on the experience front, in-game leading front, and also having an opera to replace you. Now, the other big name to Denial that literally got announced.
Did it get it?
Yeah, it did get announced. Okay, it got announced while we were filming this episode, so I just naturally threw it in my document. What lucky timing, right?
Yeah.
So Nitro has rejoined Denial. Of course, he left Denial to go play for iBuyPower, but he has since then rejoined Denial. Like I said, as we were filming this episode.
Yeah.
to replace Fugly. Um, Thoughts? Not a whole lot of time to analyze this because it just happened, but
Yeah, I mean, I heard about it when I woke up this morning, and like to be honest, I'm at a loss for words. Like Nitro is an insane player. He proved himself at the LAN, at ESA LAN, and like I think he even played exceptionally well at DreamHack Winter, and he definitely deserves to be on a top team. I was honestly surprised that like he ended up teamless out of all this,
yeah,
but
definitely, all of us
like
were.
it's a surprise to me, to be honest. Like I think Fugly is deserves a top team just as much as Nitro does, and I think he's an amazing player. So it comes down to that team's. I don't know what the decision making process was, but it was a surprise to me, a big surprise.
Yeah, I think, and this will transition to when we talk about iBuyPower, which is the next roster move we're going to talk about. But I think when most people look at what happened with iBuyPower, they'll say, "Oh, it was just really a debate between proven experience and young talent with potential." Was the debate there? And I think that, and Thorin had this like pep talk video for Nitro he released today, and I like jokingly asked Nitro if it pumped him up, and he's like, "Yeah, man, now I'm ready." But Thorin did make this good point that that this was the logically correct decision for iBuyPower. I mean, Hiko is an incredible player. He has lots of experience. He was the best player in NA for quite some time. But at the same time, Nitro really did, like you say, he proved himself really well in his brief stint with iBuyPower. And so, while it makes sense you would want Hiko because of the stability and the consistency that he has,
Well, that is just speculation. Nothing's official. So,
okay, fine. I'll just asterisk. Okay, just for MLG Aspen, fine, because
yeah.
they're gonna qualify and he's gonna go with them. So, whatever. Like, if he
hmm
becomes a permanent fixture of that team or not, the fact. Listen, okay, come on, man. Like, you can say it's not confirmed all you want, but are you really telling me that you cut a starter for a stand-in? No, that doesn't happen. You bring stand-ins in when, like, you have to bring someone in. That's the whole definition of a stand-in, is having a
Yeah.
stand-in. So there's no way you cut a starting member of your team for a stand-in. Like, let's be honest, man.
But yeah, that is true, definitely. But like you'd also like in their
Yeah,
eyes,
they
you
could.
also don't want to qualify for X Games and then replace him afterwards.
Right.
So
My point is yeah, maybe it's true that Hiko may not be on that team after Aspen. That's very possible. But for the moment, we have to treat it as if he is a member of that team. And even if I'm wrong that he's a permanent fixture, my analysis of like why they bring him in for Aspen over keeping Nitro is still valid in the sense that he's like proven consistency, good experience. You get my point, right? We at
hmm
least have to accept for Aspen that this analysis still applies, but it does still suck for Nitro, right? Because he has a lot of talent. And I would even like make this comparison to Denial too, because yeah, it makes sense to bring Nitro back because now he's a free agent again. Because I mean, face it, he was always a free agent. He didn't sign a contract for iBuyPower. He was a stand-in for iBuyPower. Same with DaZeD. That's why they were so easily able to make changes
hmm
without there being
Yeah.
much controversy. Um, but anyway, so yeah, I almost make the same case here. Like it sucks for Fugly because he proved himself pretty well at ESEA LAN, only to get replaced by Nitro. So, but it does somewhat make sense because I think Nitro was a great player. I think with adreN and Nitro and like all the NAF, like that team is going to be very powerful. There's no question. Like that's a team that would normally not be considered a concern by like teams like Cloud9 iBuyPower, and now based on last LAN and like their consistency online, the talent they've just gotten, that's a team
Yeah.
to watch out for as being like number 3, number 4 NA for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, they're gonna be a great team.
Any like, but what would you say about Fugly then in this situation?
Uh, to be honest, I'd love to see him on like a Mouse Spaz or maybe a Lunatic. I think that's a team to watch as well. Uh, yeah, it shocked me, to be honest. Like I thought Fugly was like a core at Denial. So
So, I mean, what do you think happens to Fugly now? I mean, will he be able to find himself like another invite team to play with? Like,
yeah, I think he
Torque
will.
seems to be the one picking up all the fallen pieces every time. So, is that maybe an option? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I don't know if Torque is an option because if like Torque, I feel like is a team for the X Games, and I feel like I don't know about Torque's future past the X Games
Right.
if they don't or do qualify. So I'd love to see Fugly on like another like settled invite team, like a Mouse Baz, like I said before. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think with all the moves that we just... Well, let's talk about iBuyPower first, then we'll kind of do our NA rankings, okay? Who won, who lost sort of deal. So iBuyPower... Me and Moses spent a considerable time last episode of The Hype talking about this, so if you guys would probably should just listen to that, because I'm not going to go into it too heavily, but we already concluded that iBuyPower probably made a bit of a mistake getting rid of DaZeD in the first place because they were doing well, especially at Face It, taking second place. That's the best placing an NA team has ever had in CSGO ever. And I mean, they beat LDLC at a time where LDLC was clearly #2 in the world, and
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. They beat them on Inferno, like their house map that like no one beats them on except for maybe Fnatic on Inferno. That was, I mean, of course it was like this crazy triple overtime or something like that. No, it was a really close game, and then they beat them on D2 pretty cleanly, which is D2 is probably their house map if you're iBuyPower. I think they have like an 80% win rate on Dust 2 since Cologne.
Yeah, they're really good on Dust 2.
So yeah, I mean that was big, and then they come back from Face It before going to ESWC, and they get rid of DaZeD. And we've already talked about the reasons why that might have been, and if it was a good decision or not. So we won't even reflect on that anymore. We talked about that last episode of The Hype, so go check it out if you want that analysis. But the bottom line is like they clearly decided that after ESCA LAN, which once again I'm gonna say that it doesn't logically make sense to get rid of Nitro after ESCA LAN if you didn't already know before ESCA LAN that you were probably not going to keep him around. Because he was a stand-in. Like, that was always the mentality. So I think that they already had their decision made before Nitro played ESCA LAN, and regardless of how well he was going to do, they were always considering bringing DaZeD back.
Yeah, probably.
Which didn't affect him initially, right? Because that was just DaZeD's replacement.
Yeah.
But the point is that iBuyPower has this roster change mentality probably before they even step into the event. So they come out of the event with third place, respectable placing. I mean, they beat Titan. Of course, Titan was playing with the stand-in Iorix, so you have to kind of wonder exactly how strong that was. But they played some close games against Fnatic. It's 12-16 loss on Cash.
Yeah, it was really close.
So, first of all, would you agree that them getting rid of DaZeD was a mistake in the first place?
Yes and no. Like, in terms of leadership, it may have been a mistake because AZK is definitely capable of in-game leading a team. As you know, Dust, from Dynamic,
Right.
like, they were the best for so long in America, and that was with AZK at the head for a very long portion of that. But then again, it is understandable that if it's a team judgment and they don't want to play with a player, then that's the team's judgment. That team. If you don't want to play with someone and you're playing with them, the whole team doesn't. I just don't see a team succeeding. So, but now it seems like they've solved their problems or they've understood what they need to do, and I think it's DaZeD iBuyPower is an upgrade.
So do you think bringing him back was the right decision then?
Yeah, I agree.
So people will look at this and think it's awkward because he walks back to the team who cut him, denied him his privilege to play at a major, which I really think with DaZeD they probably would have advanced out of groups at DreamHack Winter 14. Because the reason why they didn't advance is because they choked against Penta. They choked. Yeah. They were ahead, like 13 to something. I can't remember what it was, but
it
then
13-2, yeah.
And then the other team just rallies 14 rounds in a row on their CT side and wins the game. And I think that more experience, because AZK doesn't have experience leadership-wise in CSGO as an in-game leader, and I really think that DaZeD would have probably been able to figure it out, how to get out the rut and beat Penta and move on. So obviously that's probably like a slap in the face to DaZeD to miss out on that major and miss out on the one time that iBuyPower might finally advance out of groups in a major.
Yeah, you could say they had probably one of the best possible chances in that group.
Yeah, especially whenever Titan got DQ'd and like you saw it was them. Like the Dignitas was their only competition in the group in most people's eyes at that point, if they would have still had DaZeD. But obviously with the DaZeD Nitro thing, people actually said, oh, well, maybe Copenhagen Wolves might actually have a chance to like now beat out. But the group still looked way more favorable than any other group draw they've ever had before any other major, as far as who they had to get through. So, yeah, I mean, that had to be tough. But, I mean, I think DaZeD put it best. And people ask, how does this awkward thing happen? And it's really because, I mean, at the end of the day, DaZeD wants to win. And he's going to put himself in the best position to do so. And if that means that his best position to win is going back to iBuyPower, regardless of personal feuds, that's where he's going to go. If that's really what he thinks is going to be best for winning. And I think that now they'll kind of, I think they've all grown stronger personally from this decision-making process of cutting and bringing
Yeah.
back. And I think that maybe now this will air out some of the issues that they have with each other as far as like lack of communication and some of these other issues that have been brought up. What do you think about the decision? I mean, if you're DaZeD, I mean, how do you think he feels? How do you think this is going to work out? Is it going to be awkward? I mean, what do you think?
I don't think it'll be awkward. I mean, DaZeD clearly stated that this was his Ivanhoe looked like his opportunity to be one of the best, and that's what he wants to do. That's his goal, and so that's why he took it if he got the offer again. But then I also think that when they removed DaZeD and Steel, I don't know the situation regarding that. Like, it wasn't really a bad thing. It was a risk taking Desi and Nitro, but it does nothing but like help both those players prove that they're definitely capable of playing internationally, regardless of their penta whatever. They did play pretty well, and so like yeah, it wasn't really a bad thing in my eyes. Like having more North American players prove themselves and have some international experience.
Oh, it was good for the scene to allow two players to step up, and now they're like candidates for other top teams now.
Yeah.
But for iBuyPower's chances of advancing out of DreamHack winner groups, it was probably a bad decision.
Yeah,
Because I really do stand by the fact that I think they would have made it out of groups had they have kept the same lineup from Face It, or they took second place. So yeah, and I think maybe they made the move with the thinking that, oh, like long term this will work out, so let's go ahead and bring in some young talent now, let them get some experience, we'll polish them, and then in the future we'll be greater because of it. But somehow or another they decided, well, we need leadership back, and so that's obviously the thing to bring up DaZeD. And then with them bringing in Hiko, I mean, it's a stand-in, quote unquote, as for now, but DaZeD even said himself that if he was trying to put together a team where he had the best chance to win, he would have Hiko a part of it. And I'd like to think that their decision to bring in Hiko as a stand-in probably did come from him a little bit, maybe even from Swag, who has experience playing with Hiko in the past as well. Overall, I think this is a good decision to have Hiko in at iBuyPower. He obviously is a proven talent, but yeah, it kind of stinks for Nitro because I think that Nitro could have done well for this team if it would have been like DaZeD and Nitro with, AZK, Skadoo, Swag. I think that team actually, role-wise, made more sense because now you kind of have two lurkers with Swag and Hiko. Granted, both players are versatile enough to where you could probably shift them out of a lurker position into something else. But Nitro is kind of more of an aggressive player by nature. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what do you think about iBuyPower now with this?
I mean, once again, nothing's official, so I guess we'll see. It'll definitely be a strong roster, and we see how X Games qualifiers go. But I also think that Nitro, at this point, with the recent announcement, didn't get such a bad end of the deal either. I think that Nitro on Denial is nothing but better for Denial.
Yeah, I think you're right too. So what are your NA rankings right now? If you had to predict how things are going to go at Aspen, if you had to say, okay, this North American team has the best chance, this North American team has the second best chance, where do you rate NA teams right now in your opinion?
It's hard to say with all the shuffles that's going on. You don't even know if this is the end of it.
Exactly.
Like surprises every day. But for X Games, with the qualifiers, I do see iBuyPower and Denial qualifying, and then from there, I'd love to see how the rankings pan out, but it's so hard to judge right now, to be honest.
Well, I think I would, if I was to do my rankings right now, I'd have to probably put iBuyPower at #1, just based off their strong placing at ESCA LAN, based on bringing DaZeD back. I think that only makes them stronger, and I think that if they do want, at least for Aspen, bringing in Hiko was probably a good move. I think that he brings experience. I think they would have done equally as well with Nitro as well at Aspen. So I kind of put them at #1. I think between you and Denial, it's really hard to tell who is going to be kind of #2 in NA. Because I think that if you go by history, it would be Cloud9. But like you said, the roster shufflers throw a lot of question marks up in the air. Cloud9 might be better because of their pickup from you and actually rise to be top of NA again. Or, you might do well, but iBuyPower might still be just a little bit ahead. But I think that Denial's now a scary lineup that can challenge you for #2 with Nitro coming back, with NAF having such a hot event recently, with adreN's experience and leadership coming in. If Anger can, get out the rut he was in individually to ESCA LAN and get back to fragging well, he obviously adds to it.
I don't think that was a big deal.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah. So that's where I'm kind of at. That's kind of my top 3, and I think MousePad's probably not too far behind.
Agree.
Torqued.
Yeah.
If they survive past Aspen, that's a team that could. They're already joking about being dead, but it's what do you think? We didn't even talk about it. What do you think about Torqued right now? Obviously, we don't even know who their fifth is right now.
Yeah.
But we know it's like Steel, Mo, TCK, Amonte, and then whoever they decide to be their fifth, whether it be Frost or whether they pick up Fugly. They have a history of picking up the pieces that are left behind in a roster shuffle. What do you think about this team? Is this a team that we can maybe look to in the future to challenge?
Yeah, there's a lot of good things about Torqued too. The thing is, like, competition itself, like, those are all players that know how to win and know how to be at the top. They're definitely capable of it as well. I mean, the Quantic people and such, but they're also like a great marketable team. Like, it's fun to watch. They're fun to watch play and such, So like, I think it's nothing but good for the scene having a team that's competitive as well as just fun. If you kind of get what I'm going at, yeah.
So you think that it's going to be iBuyPower and denial who will qualify out of this Aspen qualifier right now?
Yeah, I mean, we have to see like who Torqued's fifth will be and what direction they take the team. It seems like they're not aiming to be. I don't know if they're aiming to be the best or just be competitive. If you kind of understand what I'm saying. But yeah.
Right. So I mean, we know Steel and Mo are obviously like Steel will be good as the in-game leading position for them. Mo is a solid opper. I think if TCK can knock the rust off, this is a guy that had a pretty good pedigree in North American CSGO back in his days with Quantic and stuff like that.
He was one of the best.
Yeah, so I think if he can get back to form, he can be a threat. I think, like, Monty might be the only one where, I mean, he's not bad, but I don't think he ever transitioned to Go. Like, he was really talented in NA Counter-Strike Source towards the end when he was playing with, like, the Czech 6 guys and stuff when they were going to, like, what was that, ESWC 2012 or something?
Yeah.
And then, like, I think it was a Copenhagen Games or something like that where they eliminated Very Games from the event, but I think they took, like, 3rd or 4th. And then they had the 3rd place finish over Dynamic at ESWC.
Yeah, that was, like, the last major CSGO tournament.
Right. So, I mean, he was doing, and he was really young then, too. I think he was, like, 19 years old or something like that at that point. So, I mean, he looked really sharp, but in CSGO, we've never really I think we've, like, just like you, I think he was only at that Season 14 ESEA LAN. Or he was at one ESEA LAN with Steel. With 50, yeah, I think it was homeless. It was 50, yeah, it's the homeless line, like you said. And that team was, like, just a pug, so you can't really draw much conclusion from that. So, yeah, I think that might be the only point where I'm kind of curious if he'll be able to, skill-wise, be up there with kind of the rest of the consistent players in NA. But, so, yeah, I mean,
I think you will.
Final conclusion for that team, then? Do they have a chance to advance past a denial or an iBuyPower?
Definitely. I mean, I want to see who their fifth is and see where that takes them. Maybe a DaZeD, who knows?
Yeah, I think these semi-final matches for this qualifier number 1 for MLG Aspen, which I think are actually tomorrow night, or what's Wednesday, the 17th of December, depending on when you're watching this. Those will be interesting, because I think, Denial's in that mix, Torqued is in that mix, iBuyPower's in that mix. I know there's like a qualifier, too, as well, a second chance qualifier, but
yeah,
those semi-final matches will be and the finals themselves will also be very, very interesting.
For sure.
So it'll be cool to see where that goes. So we will now move off of the NA roster shuffle. I think we spent a good hour and a half talking about it, which it was proper to get that amount of time, I think.
Oh, there was a lot to talk about.
But there are a couple more topics to talk about I think are relevant. And the first topic would be, and we've kind of already talked about this though, but what other NA teams do you think are in the mix? Like, we've already talked about iBuyPower, Cloud9, Denial, I guess MousePads and Torqued. Is there any other teams out there outside that 5 that you kind of see as moving their way up the ranks, so to speak?
I think Lunatic is a team to watch. From personally watching them, like, I sit around and watch these other matches as well, and I think the players on that team have the skill and motivation to be a top team, maybe even mythic. Like, it's nothing but good to have these teams really try to be the best as well. I feel like MousePads doesn't get as much credit as they deserve, because they're definitely a team that is capable of taking out any of the top teams at any given point. In my eyes, like, they definitely have a skill.
Yeah, online best of ones between, like, the 5 teams we've talked about are always going to be interesting now, it seems like.
Yeah. Who knows what Elevate is doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what are they doing? Are they keeping the same 5 from the last ESEA LAN? Seems like they kind of were, but
I have no idea. But they're also like a team that when I was in Nano, they gave us a lot of trouble as well, on LAN and online. Even in the last week when I played my last match with Nano, like, Elevate's a top contender as well in my eyes, and maybe they're part of the roster shuffle too. Who knows? Like I don't know, but
Yeah, I mean they had a 13-16 loss to you guys in CEVO that I casted recently on Cash, and it was similar to the overtime Cash match you guys had on Lane.
yeah,
Like they challenge you pretty well. So I mean I would say Elevate's definitely still in the mix as well.
hmm
So that's kind of where we're at then, looking bright for NA. Now, there's been rumors about more organizations coming into North America as sponsors. What do you think about this? How likely do you think it is? Are you excited to hear that? What do you think?
I mean, of course, I'm excited to hear that. Like, you've got like rumors of these top COD orgs and top League of Legends organizations that want to get into CS:GO because they see the growth of CS:GO, and that only helps North American CS grow. You know, like once these teams have backing and a reason and like the support to commit time and actually compete at these events, that's nothing but good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just kind of curious, like, what teams would have a chance of getting picked up by bigger orgs. I think that iBuyPower is a team that could be bought out by a big enough org that has enough money. I mean, iBuyPower's been a great sponsor for that team. They've boot camped them. They've sent them to Europe quite a lot. I mean, so it's not like iBuyPower is not a good org. They're a great sponsor, but in other games, they're known as a sponsor of an org, not the actual org itself, like, doing
Yeah,
everything for the team.
I think like CLG showed
Right.
interest, but iBuyPower is a CLG sponsor,
Yeah,
so
exactly. So that could be something you might see. I know everyone keeps talking about EG, Evil Geniuses getting into CS, and of course we'd all love to see that. But EG has kind of a history of really only going after teams that are at the top, that are already winning everything. So you have to kind of wonder if they're
hmm
like interested in trying to pick up like an LDLC or something like that, crazy, or pick up a European team.
maybe
This is
even
just
Alliance.
yeah, I mean, crazy speculation, of course, but I think there's a chance
Yeah,
that iBuyPower could be one of the teams that some of these top NA orgs are probably looking at, maybe buying out. I mean, people have proven if you have enough money, you can buy teams out. I mean, EG's done it to
yeah.
Complexity before. Cloud9 did it to Complexity in CSGO. So, I mean, it's not like it's unheard of that a solid org can still be bought out by, like, a higher budget org at some point, or someone who at least wants to invest more money in CSGO than the other previous orgs. So,
Definitely.
and I think maybe even Denial at some point gets looked at as well, or Mousespaz. Some of these teams that are kind of fighting.
Mousespaz,
Yeah. So, um, with that said, I think yeah, like you said, it's only really good news for us in NA. And as far
for sure.
as NA goes, I mean, MLG Aspen is this new North American event. How do you feel about this event for NA? Like, what was your initial reactions when you heard about it?
It's the X Games, it's huge. I mean, every like that's why I think that's every major org wants a team that's in the X Games. Like the X Games is gonna have a lot of coverage. It's gonna be a big thing. And then hopefully that leads into like MLG having maybe even the CS:GO League. Like they have the COD leagues and they had the Dota League. I think they announced the Dota League or
Yeah, they
something
did.
now.
They already did
Yeah.
announce the Dota League.
So
It's like over
maybe we're gonna have a
$500,000 or
CS:GO
something.
MLG League or something, you know?
I
Like
mean,
it's big
Adam
news.
Adam from MLG was in the chat room yesterday when we were
hmm
casting the Aspen qualifiers, and he was talking about how they were interested in doing like a full circuit across North America for CS:GO and to have like a league like they have for COD and have like
Exactly, yeah.
so I think I think MLG will be like the next big thing alongside ESEA and CEVO to be consistently supporting the game. On top of that, you still have Face It making ventures in North America. They have that online tournament going on that, they seem to have LAN finals at the end of it as well. So that Face It's something to look at as well. So it's like 4 pretty big tournament organizations that are, fielding
Yeah.
stuff for NA. The future looks bright, I guess, is like the conclusion you could make. I mean, do you think there's even more in store for us, like an NA major? Like, what do you think's next for NACS?
I'd love to see. I know ESL like built a studio last year in America, in like LA or something. I'd love to see if that put to use for CS:GO maybe, something like that. I mean, there's so many like things coming up. Like you never know, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, if MLG, can prove they can run these events right, which I'm sure they will be able to, they could be even an organization that Valve looks at to run a major in North America. So
hmm
you never really know. And the last topic I had on my list that guaranteed wanted to talk about before maybe I let some questions be asked here by the chat is the latest CS:GO patch that
Oh yeah.
came in. Obviously, they nerfed the CZ quite a lot. It's kind of funny. It's like it's almost like, let's say the CZ was a criminal, right? And we all wanted the police to arrest the criminal and put him in jail. But instead what happened is like the criminal got intercepted from the police by like a gang and got like beat in a dark alley somewhere. is what happened to the CZ. Is like the best comparison. That was just off the top of my head. Because I mean, a lot of people were calling for the gun to be nerfed in a price, so they wanted it to be more expensive, but not necessarily mechanically change the gun.
Yeah.
Not to say there weren't some people who say the gun should be mechanically changed, but a lot of people, their first go-to option was, let's just increase the price up to something in the 4 figures, like $1,200. Make it actually risky to buy. Make it to where you actually have to consider ecoing instead of just getting the gun for free second round because it's only $500. It's insanely cheap. There's no risk to buy it. Let's make it risky to buy, and that would actually kind of, you know, make it interesting. But I mean, they changed the damage. They changed the pullout time. They changed the clip size. They changed the rate of fire. I mean, they just smashed this gun. Was it too much? Or do you think that this was perfect?
I mean, I was someone that like really abused the CZ a lot. Like I would take the risky close angles with the op because I always had the CZ to fall back on. And I mean, I'd get like more CZ kills than I would get op kills sometimes. Because I mean, I can't even imagine how it was like $300 at one point. It's crazy. But I think that they did kind of nerf it too much with like they just threw like everyone's suggestions in. They made it like just so much worse. I don't even think it's viable anymore, to be honest. So like,
you don't
think everyone's going to the Tech 9.
So no one's going to use it?
I don't think a lot of people are going to use the CZ now, no.
Like, would you consider using it still in some situations?
I think the Tech 9 is just like an all-around better option now.
What about like on CT side? Whenever you can pick your angles and definitely get close range or whatever.
See, I always thought like all the CSGO pistols were a bit overpowered anyways, so I'd much rather use the 5.7 now. Like 5.7's fast to pull out, you can shoot it fast. It's like pretty accurate too, even long range. So
has lots of bullets, yeah.
Yeah. So
you think the CZ has effectively been nerfed into oblivion?
Yeah, and I think that we'll probably like once the Valve sees that like nobody's gonna be using the CZ now, I think that maybe the CZ will have smaller adjustments to make it somewhat viable, because I think they kind of just threw it out there now.
I think everyone's okay with not seeing it for now, just because we were plagued by it for so long. So it's like refreshing to not see it used. But yeah, I think you're right. At some point, maybe, we'll have to be like, okay, it's not getting used at all. So we got to make it somewhat more viable. And so you might see some slight buffs back on the gun to bring it back to a balanced standard, but something that can still be implemented, I guess. So the other big thing that I took out of the patch was bringing train back, the map train, which I think didn't need to go. They just needed to adjust it, but I guess they didn't have time to do the adjustments they wanted to do, so they just went ahead and got rid of it for now. What have you seen the new train? Have you played on it? I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't played it. I haven't seen it played, so it's hard to draw a conclusion. Do you have any information on this map?
I mean, I played one 10-man on it, and it was like really CT-sided, which is the complete opposite of what I thought it would be when I first looked at it in an offline server. The old CSGO train was actually my favorite map. I mean, as an opera, I love train, and source, I love train. So this one's like a pretty big change in terms of like the T mid, I think, is awkward and needs to be changed. But like the art style is also really different, but I like the art style in a bit. Like a lot of people were saying comments on it, but I think I like it. It's the kind of art style that lasts in a way.
Right.
But
that's the biggest complaint, is making the maps look like they deserve to be in like a current generation game, and not like, you know, old graphics from older versions of CS. So exactly. I think the textures are fine. Yeah, I think that was a great upgrade. But
like I would have loved to see the Tuscan in that art style. I think that would have been amazing. But you know, I'm excited to play a new train, like a new map. It just adds something new to it.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if we'll actually see it in competition anytime soon. I feel like Valve might push it in the next major, like they did with Cobblestone and Overpass, but that will force teams to play it and learn it, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's definitely not being used for MLG, which is like the next big event everyone's talking about. So we'll just have to kind of see what happens after that, I guess, to see.
Yeah, I feel like this train's gonna have like a dedicated auto sniper on every team. Like it's just. It's so open, like long range battles. Like you're gonna have offers and auto snipers dominating this map.
So how would you fix it? Like,
I'd still like to be able to get under the trains, and they kind of like took out a lot of the trains that people use. So I mean, I was fine with the old train, to be honest. So
I honestly thought the Volcano edition of the train was great.
That one was amazing too.
It needed tweaks. I mean, that was it.
Valve could have taken that layout and changed it, but we'll see how this plays. Like, I haven't really given it enough time to test it out.
Right, true enough. The other big thing was I mean, DE season, of course, that's like it's been out for a bit, but now it's like officially part of an operation for CS:GO, and it's like,
Yeah.
what do you think about this map going forward? I mean, it's already
For,
been used somewhat competitively, at, like ESEA, but what do you think about the newer version of it?
yeah, I had to play. I forgot what event it was. I had to play the new season on a map. I think it was the Face It
Face it,
tournament.
yeah.
Best of three,
It was
yeah,
either that or
against
Hitbox
Mythic.
Arena.
It was the Face It one, yeah. The new season, and I can't say I'm a fan of it. Like the colors are cool, but the biggest problem I have with that map is that because everything is so white, there's no clear-cut edges on the walls, so you can't really tell if you're on like a lower resolution where the wall ends. So you don't know where to put your crosshair. Like it's just all white, and you don't
Hmm.
know which part's the opening of the door. Like that's like a really big problem I have with that map. If they just had like outlines on the doors or the edges of the map, that'd be fine. It looked cartoony, but that's just my personal thing about that map.
But I mean, do you think like the overall layout and meta of the map will be competitively viable if some of those like texture things, like you said, are kind of optimized?
Yeah, definitely. Like I know FMP took a lot of input from a lot of players as well about changing the sites a bit. Like the B bomb site, the jail and CT choke points were a bit too small. He made them a lot wider, so retaking B is actually like a viable option now because it used to be that retaking B on season was like one of the hardest things to do on any CS map, in my opinion. Like retaking B on Mirage is pretty hard, but I think like in terms of that, it's good. It's just my personal thing with it is the textures. But yeah.
Okay, so obviously Overpass got a lot of flack. It always had flack in the beginning because it was like a new map, and like when it's new, people tend to have like reactions towards it that are negative. But eventually, people were starting to kind of figure it out. But there was obviously this really controversial boost that took place
Oh yeah.
with Fnatic, and I'm not even going to bother talking about it because it's kind of old news now. We've already played
Mhm.
it out. I think between Thorin's comments on it, everyone else's comments about it, I think we've kind of seen all sides of that story. So it just depends on which side you want to take on like what you believe was right and wrong. But the point is just let's just talk about the map itself. It obviously got an update as well. Obviously the controversial boost is gone, so we don't even have to worry about that anymore. It's like a non-issue going forward. But I think like the most interesting thing is what I've seen in the meta of the map is because they changed the bomb site A like planning zone, you actually
Oh
don't even
yeah.
have to take the site anymore. Like you can just plant the bomb in the front, and then
I
kind of
like
just
that a
fall
lot.
back. Like it's kind of similar to what you did on train at like Yellow Barrel, or
Yeah,
like
yeah. The
what
plant
you can
struts.
do on Inferno at the stairs if you like smoke stairs at a CT spawn. Like you just plant and fall back, and I've seen a lot of teams doing that in the Aspen qualifiers.
Hmm.
What do you think about Overpass like since the update and going forward? Is this a competitively viable map? If so, what do you think about it?
Well, like when Overpass was first introduced, like like the CS community is not known for accepting newer maps,
Right.
but I thought Overpass was generally like more accepted than a lot of other maps that have
Well,
been
like, no
introduced to
one,
the scene.
people to this day still don't like Cobblestone. So I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I personally have gripes with the Cobblestone too, but I think Overpass is actually a really fun and good map to play. It's like something fresh. Like the angles are kind of awkward on the map. It's not what you're used to, but it definitely does like make your team have to work, and it's definitely still a competitive map. The change in the A bomb site is something that I really like because the A bomb site was just like one choke point, and teams would just rotate smokes, which is like a big problem in Inferno right now, like with the CT economy. So having this extended bomb site where you can do plant strats just adds another like gives the T's like the opportunity to actually do something else at that site. I think it's good.
yeah, I think it's a good map. I think what's even more interesting about it is like we still haven't even really scratched the surface on this map meta-wise because, for example, like the North Americans really haven't even had a chance to take a stab at it very much because
Yeah,
it wasn't
exactly.
used.
Like
So I think that, and in some regards, it's actually funny because when we watch like the DreamHack winning, we see how teams are playing it. It seems like, oh, it's a no-brainer. You should play CT side this way on Overpass. That's what people are doing, and it works. Then you watch other people try to play CT side on the map, and the map's usually pretty CT sided from what I understand. But when I was casting Aspen qualifier matches, and granted, this is like lower level teams, not the top, which already is going to throw off how it works. But like I saw like a lot of T rounds just because like it seemed like CTs weren't really sure how to hold off A executions, especially with the new
yeah.
planning zone. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a map that we still don't even really know what the meta is going to be. This going, especially within the North American scene. It'll be curious to see how it changes as more teams get time to play it. Because right now it seems like the team who wins is just the team who's played it more. I mean, that's pretty much what it
Yeah,
boils down
hopefully we
to.
start getting it more like it's just played more in America so we actually get a chance to play it. Because I know our team hasn't even ever scrimmed it once. Well, my old team never scrimmed it once. So, like, I'd love to play it more outside of pugs and 10 mans, you know?
Right. So we've talked about all the changes that have taken place so far. Is there any more changes you think that we need to see sometime soon in order to, keep this game in the right direction?
In terms of like updates.
Yeah, like what other elements of the game do you think need to change, either map wise or gameplay wise, or what do you think?
Personally, I think the scout needs a nerf.
Oh yeah,
It's so
that's
cheap and so overpowered. Like especially like just some parts in some maps, it's just like so dominant, just jumping up and shooting people before like especially online, like you can't even react to it. It's really hard, and that needs something to change. Yeah.
anything else other than that?
Um, Everyone says like they want movement changes, but I don't know specifically how that can be done. Like I'd love
I,
to see the movement more like 1.6's movement,
mm,
where it becomes something that's big enough where it adds to the skill gap, because it's always fun watching players that have nice movement. Like you in 1.6 you could watch a player's movement and know who that is playing in a way.
right, I get what you're saying. I think that's the thing. Is like there's like these really broad things that people want changed, but like the specific solution isn't really presented. So in the
Yeah,
case
it's
of
hard.
movement, people always say that they want it to be smoother and more like 1.6, but how you actually quantify that, like in in-game setting values, and like I
Exactly.
don't really know how that works. I'm not like a game dev, but I think that the point is it's not game breaking the way movement is now. Yeah, it could be polished and better, but
Hmm.
I think there's other game breaking things that need to be addressed before movement, which I think isn't the best, but it's still playable. And I think that you brought up the scout, which is like the perfect example of something that needs to
Yeah.
be nerfed. I think in tandem with that, it's the jumping hitboxes that are kind of ridiculous, because not only is the scout insanely cheap and insanely accurate,
But it's
but
impossible to hit them.
yeah,
Like
they're invincible. Like I think adreN addressed this in a video that he made recently, and it's something that I brought up too in an article that I wrote. But it's just like the jumping hitboxes are just ridiculous. I think people have made the other general hitbox like
the ladder
critiques as well.
hitboxes.
Yeah, right. So I think
Those
hitboxes in general are rough. Let's see if there was one other big thing. Oh yeah, people are talking about movement accuracy with pistols, and how like pistol rounds, like the aiming battles and pistol rounds just seem to be somewhat random at
Yeah.
times. I don't know if that's really true or not, but movement accuracy was something that people had issues with the CZ for sure. And that may
No,
have been the
it's definitely with the other pistols as well. Like I was saying, I thought the CS:GO pistols were a bit overpowered. Like you can run and shoot with the P250, the Tech 9, and the 5.7, like pretty accurately, and I don't think that's good.
yeah. So I think if we just came up with a list of things that are still somewhat game breaking that need to be changed effective immediately to really optimize the game very quickly, this Nerf Scout, hitbox issues with jumping and on ladders and things like that, and then movement accuracy with pistols would probably be the three biggest things I could think of. Do you have anything else you can think of that maybe we could put out there?
Um, I or I can't think of anything right now,
Yeah, I
but
mean, I kind of
yeah,
put you on the spot, so I didn't expect you to have anything
yeah, that's fine.
elaborate. But I think we addressed at least three big things there that could be changed. Is there anything else with maps that you'd like to see changed, or maps you'd like to see used that aren't used, or maps that are used think we should get rid of? I mean, what do you think is the finish off the map discussion as well?
Um, I know a lot of people are calling for changes on Nuke. I thought it was fine the way it is. Like I kind of like the heavily CT-sided maps. It makes matches more exciting in a way. Uh, but I want to see the reintroduction of Tuscan. I missed that map. That map was really good.
Yeah, I could agree. I think Tuscan could be another map. I think Tuscan and Season are two maps that right now aren't in competitive rotations that very well could be.
Hmm.
And I think like Cobblestone just has to go, man. Like in my opinion, I
Oh
don't.
yeah, yeah.
I think Overpass has kind of like earned its keep, so to speak, especially with the newest updates, and I think it could be viable. But I think that, and I used to hate Overpass, so like I've come around to it, I guess you could say. But I think that Cobblestone just needs to go. No one wants to play it, and I think that maps like Tuscan or Season could be like, well, Season will be the probably next in line because it's already in an
Hmm.
operation and everything.
Yeah.
Whereas Tuscan's still like kind of far out there right now, as it just released and nothing's been done to it. So
Yeah, maybe even Contra for the Source players. I
yeah, but
love
there's not
Contra.
even a CS:GO version of that present really.
Yeah,
So I'm just saying, like, yeah, there's all these maps we could come up with. Oh, we could bring Ruska back. Like, you can talk
yeah.
about all these other maps, but like
Uh-huh.
realistically, the only map that we could put in right now is probably Season, based on the fact that it's already in an operation. So Valve already
Hmm.
kind of respects it, and it is pretty polished in its current state. Whereas
Yeah,
maps like Tuscan definitely still need to be tweaked. They're still kind of
for
really in a
sure.
beta phase, if we're honest. Contra never really got a remake yet. Neither has Ruska. So yeah, I mean, it's almost as if Season's really the only map that we could insert in right now and it be actually okay.
Yeah, I agree there.
So is there any questions from chat, by the way? Just a couple of quick questions from chat, and then we'll turn this thing off. We'll give it like 5 more minutes because I know you got some stuff to do. But is there any last comments or shout-outs or thoughts while we wait and see if any questions come in from chat? I'm only going to maybe ask a couple because I know we're pressed for time. But just any final thoughts or shouts before we cut the interview?
Sorry,
Final
like
thoughts,
so.
final thoughts, comments, shout-outs.
Thanks for having me on the show, Dust.
No problem.
Shout out to Cloud9 for giving me the opportunity, and thanks to everyone for watching.
There you go.
We're waiting for questions, or
Yeah, I was just gonna see if some good questions came in. I was just gonna give it like maybe a couple. Some
okay.
people asked like, who is your favorite player in the NA scene?
My favorite player in the NA scene. Ooh, uh, in terms of like personality or skill, because
Both. Just give us both. One for each.
personality, it's always been Jordan. So it's pretty crazy that I'm on a team with him. He's always been like the most genuine person I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
And then skill, like I always thought Swag had like the craziest raw talent. But yeah.
There you go. That's not a bad answer. Already asked about Train. When is your first match going to be with Cloud9? Is it going to be at Aspen?
Well, online.
Oh yeah, we have CVOP stuff going on now too.
Yeah, I can't play the first SIVA match with our team, so we're gonna have to use a stand-in, maybe Trace. But
yes, good old Stunner coming
I
in
think
huge.
our first LAN event will be
Oh
X
yeah, it'll be
Games.
Aspen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Are you going to keep up the streaming with your new full-time commitment to Cloud9? Is that still going to be a
Yeah,
thing?
that's the plan.
Okay. What are your favorite? Name your top 3 favorite bands.
Top 3 favorite bands. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
In no order. Brand New, Circus Survive, and The Story So Far.
Okay.
Um,
How
yeah,
happy are you to be in C9?
pretty happy. Uh, which is an understatement, but
Yeah, no brainer, right?
also, uh, I do have to give shout outs to Logitech Gaming, HyperX, Alienware, and Kingwin.
Look at you. You're just learning so quickly, man. Was that Stunna on Steam? Just kidding.
Uh,
Anyway, what operas do you think will give you the most trouble, or which operas do you feel already give you the most trouble to go head to head against?
um, I go pretty head to head against Skadoodle in America. Like, I think it's always fun playing against him. He takes a lot of like the weird, awkward angles, but they work. Like risky stuff, but I'm sure he finds comfortable. So it's fun playing against him. And I mean, I haven't played against a lot of European offers, only Kenny S really, and I
Yeah,
think it
that's
was
a
pretty
trial by
competitive.
fire, isn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty competitive. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I watch a lot of offers play. I watch a lot of CS. So
Okay. So somebody asked, this is like the infamous Twitch question about like what mouse do you use and like what's your settings and stuff like that. But this is actually a fair point. Like what gear do you think you'll transition to like as you're obviously sponsored by Logitech now? Do you think that'll have an effect on like your play at all?
oh no, I think I'll be fine. G302, I think it is. Logitech 302. That's what I'll be using.
Right on.
Uh, yeah.
And I think that's really about it. Somebody asked who are your top 3 favorite stream mods on your channel?
Top 3 favorite what?
Stream mods on your channel. Obviously
Top
someone
3
in here is
stream
baiting
mods.
you. There's
Oh,
someone in chat baiting you for love.
I can't pick favorites there. I'm sorry.
Oh, there you go. All right, last question. Most attractive NA player. Go.
Is this gonna make things awkward with my
No, it's
team?
not.
But Sean Garris, like,
Okay, there you go.
is that a
That was it. That was easy. Very easy. Very easy to answer. All right, man. Other than that, you obviously gave your sponsor shots, but do you want to, go ahead and let people know a little bit about how they can support you and stuff like that before I let you go?
yeah? Make sure to follow me on Twitter at c9ShahZaM.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone can post it in chat. And then twitch.tv/ShahZaM. I'll probably be streaming a lot now. But yeah.
All right. Well, other than that, any final last words before I hit the end call button?
think that's it. Thanks for having me, Dus.
All right, man. No problem, Shahzam. Thanks for coming on the show, and have a good one. Peace.
Appreciate it. You too.